Here we go. Gen Z against AI. I feel like my generation is the first generation entering the workforce, competing with AI for jobs and losing. So I wanted to share what I'm thinking and how I think this plays out over the next couple of years. I tried filming this earlier and I just couldn't speak. So this is take two. I think this is a good chart for the big picture view and kind of signal of what's really going on. So this is data center construction against office construction. And you can see it looks like next year in 2026, data center construction is going to flip office construction. And I think this just shows the transition, especially in white collar work that's happening from, human labor to and human intelligence to artificial labor and artificial intelligence. And as less and less human labor and intelligence is done in office space, it will be done by computers in data centers. And I think this chart shows what's happening at a big scale. And it doesn't look like this trend is going to be changing anytime soon. This was another big signal. To me, at least, David Sachs is a part of the Trump administration. He's saying, according to today's WSG, so the Wall Street Journal, AI-related investment accounts for half of GDP growth. A reversal would risk recession. We can't afford to go backwards. So I think the U.S. just sees how important this is for their economy and probably just for stuff like national defense. So I think this is a race between companies internally in the U.S., so like OpenAI, Gemini, XAI, Claude, all the big AI companies. And it's not only a race between those companies. I feel like there's an AI race going on globally between the US, China, Russia, and all the companies around the world. This was a chart from Jack Mallers, his podcast earlier in the week, just showing US data center build out by year of construction or planning in gigawatts of capacity. So like the amount of compute that data centers can provide. And again, this is just massive. If you look at 2024 compared to 2025, this trend isn't going anywhere. It looks like AI needs more compute and more is going to be happening artificially. And intelligence is shifting from, human labor to artificial labor. And I guess this also brings me just to the point between a lot of people talk about AI is a bubble. You see the, people on Twitter talking about AI bubble. You see the headlines that AI is a bubble. And sure, maybe the valuations of the companies are a bubble. Like some companies could be overvalued, take on bad debt, and go under. Some of them might blow up. But I don't think AI, the technology itself, is a bubble. I think it's going to continue to grow exponentially. I don't think we've had the ChatGPT moment on the robotics side of things. So I think everyone is aware of what AI can do on the white collar front, but I don't think everyone sees what's coming with AI implemented in robotics. So like just what we're already starting to see, robo taxis and the early stages of humanoids, I think that's going to be massive. And a lot of people, it hasn't clicked for them or they don't see what's coming. And I guess to that, Amazon's robotics team is working towards automating 75% of the company's entire operations. I can't imagine how many people are employed by Amazon right now. So that's nuts that they're going to try to automate 75% of it. And that just shows how deflationary AI is. That's a lot of jobs gone. This was an article or a headline that I saw, again, a couple of weeks ago. MIT study finds AI can already replace 11% of the US workforce. I can't see how that number isn't higher, 3, 5, 10 years down the line. And I think the best way to look at this from a big picture is the internet let the cost of information fall and collapse close to zero, because it doesn't matter if you're in New York, China, Brazil, Japan. Everyone now has access to YouTube, access to the best, scientific reports, access to everything, Zoom calls. You can talk to anyone everywhere. So that really, the cost of information and the cost of people, finding out news really collapsed. And I think AI is doing the same thing now. We're just on the early stages of that on the labor front for human labor. And I think it's just going to excel. And I think human labor, the cost of labor done by humans, is going to go down towards zero. Do I think it's going to replace all jobs? No, I think there's going to be a role for humans in the economy. I just think it's going to take more jobs than it's going to create. And here we can see who's really being affected by AI. And it looks like my generation, so Gen Z, a lot of the jobs that were used for new grads coming out of school and stepping stones into the corporate ladder, it looks like are the easiest ones to automate. So this was interesting. Companies that have adopted AI aren't hiring fewer senior employees, but they've cut back on hiring junior ones. And you can see the chart there after ChatGPT 3.5 was released. Americans with college degrees now make up a record 25% of all unemployed. and 58% of students who graduated within the past year are still looking for a job. Now, a lot of people argue this doesn't have anything to do with AI, and I agree. I think bigger economic factors are still influencing the job market, but now there's this new headwind that we've never experienced before, and I think it's only going to get heavier. So no matter the job conditions now, whether it's good or bad, I think AI is now, going to be competing with humans for these jobs, and that's a factor that hasn't been in place years prior. And this is another study done by Stanford. This was software developers, so early career people, ages 22 to 25. You can see the drop of employment for software developers earlier in the career. And a lot of people are saying, why don't companies just continue to hire humans? Why do they want AI? Why do they need AI? And it's because they're incentivized to reduce their inputs and create more output. So they're incentivized to do more for less. Otherwise, their competitor will use AI and they'll beat them because they can do more for less. So there's no point of paying paying 3 human salaries when you could pay 1 plus AI that's just as efficient. And this is deflationary. Deflation doesn't work in an inflationary system. So technology, AI is deflationary, dragging the cost of goods and services down because of how productive we're becoming. But the inflationary money system can't allow for deflation because we have a debt-based money system. If our dollars get stronger, it becomes more difficult to pay off the debt. And the US and all the Western governments can't have them. So it's a fight between deflationary forces pulling prices down and inflationary forces printing money so that doesn't happen. So I think we're in a weird in between here. And Jeff Booth has the best book on this. It's The Price of Tomorrow by Jeff Booth. Definitely check it out. I think it's probably the best book maybe I've ever read on this subject. So I'd recommend checking it out. This was interesting. Just content produced by AI is now appearing in greater volume than content created by humans. A lot of it's probably just AI slop. That's no good, but this was just interesting. This is the new Nano Banana 3 that came out by Google's Gemini. So I took a 60-minute, 1 hour long presentation my dad gave. I got Gemini to summarize it, and then I got Nano Banana, the new image gen, to make this image, and it's crazy how good this came out based on his talk. I'll get back to that in a minute. This is the robo-taxis against Uber. And again, you're just seeing how the cost of tech is going to pull prices down, even though the monetary system can't allow for this. So it says Tesla robotaxi is over 5 times cheaper than UberX in Austin, Texas. And I think robotaxis and Tesla are just going to eat Uber's lunch unless they don't opt into using driverless vehicles, because I don't see how they can compete with robotaxis if the prices are that much cheaper. The new full self-driving by Tesla is crazy. If you haven't checked it out, there's some cool videos of people going through New York City, dodging bikes and humans and cars. It's crazy how good that full self-drive's getting. And then this is Amazon's humanoid robot that's doing backflips off the wall. It's jumping up on and off this table, and it's carrying boxes places, picking it up, dropping them off. So I think this is the beginning stages. Back to the Amazon tweet. This is going to replace a lot of jobs in Amazon. And I don't think people will realize that this is coming probably in 12 months or less. This is the Tesla Robo Truck, or I don't know what they're calling it, but this will be a driverless truck taking packages across, I guess everywhere in the world with packages. There will be no need for drivers. And again, this is all deflationary. And in a free market, prices should fall as efficiency and productivity rises. So we're seeing that right now with Uber against Tesla's robotaxis. The prices are falling because the robotaxis are more efficient. But in a debt-based system, deflation is impossible. The entire fiat economy depends on inflation, stealing your purchasing power to keep the system alive. So this brings me to, what do you want to own or invest in an AI world? If software can be created, copied instantly and for free, it's difficult for software companies specifically, to have a moat and a competitive edge if an AI can take their software, copy it, and make it better instantly and for free, just like that. And we're already seeing this with Cursor. So Cursor was an AI model that was like a coding assistant. It would help you code or code for you. But now the AI models that Gemini and ChatGPT are using can do pretty much just as good as a job. Like they're just as good as a coding assistant as Cursor. So Cursor no longer has a competitive edge or a moat because now the AI that Gemini and ChatGPT use is just as good. So they were the fastest company to $500 million ARR, and now they're being disrupted because other companies are able to do it just like that. So I think it's going to be difficult to pick what companies aren't going to be disrupted by AI, specifically software, over the next decade. And that brings me to Bitcoin, a scarce, disruption-proof asset that has a moat. And I think the demand for Bitcoin is just going to continue to increase in this AI, driven economy. And it rides all these trends. So we're shifting from this, broken system on the left that requires human labor. It is indebted, and the currency just depreciates in value. The shift that we're in, we're already seeing it. There's going to be more money printing, which Bitcoin does well when there's more liquidity in the system because it's scarce. It rides the compute and the energy trends because, well, we've heard just last week Elon Musk talking about how money is really, energy, stored energy, and energy is currency. And he's saying Bitcoin is energy. There was a clip going around of the NVIDIA CEO, I forget his name now, saying the same thing. And all these data centers working for compute power using energy all mine Bitcoin when it doesn't make sense to point compute to AI because it's the buyer of last resort. So when they need to, they can't just shut all their machines off because it doesn't make sense for them financially. It's a lot of money to turn them on and turn them off. So they switch pointing their energy and compute to Bitcoin mining when they can't use it for AI because it's the buyer of last resort and it keeps them profitable. So as there's more data centers and more energy going to compute, Bitcoin becomes stronger. The hash rate will continue to go up and to the right. And obviously it's a natively digital money, so it rides the AI trend. I just threw this in here because it looks like the money printers are being turned back on. They're not calling it QE in the US, but liquidity is being injected. Dollars are going to, lose value. And this was a good tweet from Stack Hodler talking about Bitcoin. Tell me another kind of private property that you can take with you anywhere in the world without any third-party permission and without anyone noticing. You can only shove so many gold bars up your ass. Private property that can be bought and sold in tiny amounts 24/7 and has a finite supply. Finite, liquid, sovereign private property is pretty useful. And I think it becomes even more useful in an abundant AI-driven economy. And I think the major trends to ride as, AI disrupts Gen Z in the workplace, I think there's still many trends to ride and benefit from this. So I think entrepreneurs will still always be able to offer value and claim share of the value that they're producing. So I don't think entrepreneurs go anywhere. They're just going to change and adapt to this AI world. Skilled trades, I think, are still going to do well. Humanoids aren't yet taking all these skilled trade jobs. That's still years down the line, I think. And with all these new data center build-outs happening all across the US, the need for skilled trades like electricians is just going to explode. I mean, it already is. I'm seeing it online. I guess I'm just seeing tweets. I'm not seeing it firsthand, but I can imagine all these data centers being built. They're going to require a lot of human labor to build it. So I think if you're riding that trend for the next, 5-10 years, I think you will do well. And then in the white collar workspace where it seems like Gen Z is hurting, embracing AI faster than the boomers will probably be helpful because you can make companies more efficient. And if you know how to use these tools, I think it's just a competitive edge when applying for jobs. And like I said, Bitcoin, I'm going to make a whole other video on Bitcoin and AI. So that's it. Gen Z against AI. Gen Z is competing for AI for work and in a lot of cases losing. See ya.